Now, out of the theism concept, once you have defined a name and form to divinity or some characteristics of divinity, doesn't have to be the whole set of characteristics. It could be just a subset of it. Once you have defined that once you have given a name and form to it, now emerge what you could say the gods or the deities based on what subset of those characteristics have you attributed to that god or deity, and we call it deva. That's where it comes from. If you look at divinity overall and you say there is a name and form associated with that entire set of divinity or the infinite elements out there, the infinite opulences out there. You commonly hear the term omnipresent, omnipotent, all of those, omniscient. Basically, a name and form or an entity that knows it all. If you assign a name and form to that, then you would call that divinity in that name and form to be Ishvara or Bhagavan, one of those two. If you don't want to put a name and form and you still want to keep it impersonal, then you could call it Paramatma or the super soul, or you could also call it Brahman, which is what the Upanishads call it, Brahman. So, or the absolute. So essentially, when you put a name and form, now it becomes Ishvara or Bhagavan, and in an impersonal form, it still remains a Paramatma or a Brahman. Another name given to a divinity with a name and form that is all encompassing is also Narayana, Narayana, or the abode of everything, where everything and every one of us dwell in. That is Narayana, and that becomes the name and form for a deity or a supreme deity having all characteristics. Now, when that same supreme deity has a more emphasis on the forms of motherlyhood, compassion, kindness, all the characteristics you would expect from a loving mother, forgiveness, then you would call that same deity and that name and form as Lakshmi, another common term that you'd have heard. That's kind of how the names and forms and the various deities of the devas have emerged. Now, expand this a little bit further. If you think about all the 20 different emotions emerge from our sense organs, and they are the 5 sense organs of which are subtle in nature, like the seer behind the eye, the one who sees, the one who hears, the one who smells, the one who tastes, the one who touch. It is something subtle, something behind your sight. And then there is something very physical, like the organs of action, like the mouth, the hand, the feet, the organs of procreation, the organs of excretion. All those are very, very more physical sense organs in that sense. And then you have the mind itself. So if you add up these 5 sense organs, which are subtle, 5 sense organs, which are very, very physical, then the mind, you come up with a total of 11. Now, these 11 are responsible essentially for all your emotions, isn't it? And those 11, now you call it with a name and form, and you can give it a term called Rudra, which is another common term you would have heard. Many have translated Rudra now to Shiva as another name and form there. So you ended up with Narayana, you ended up with Lakshmi, now you have Rudra. Now, take this further and see how this plays out really well. If you take only a subset of divinity characteristics, let's just take obstacles as one of that, as an example. And let us say you have the divinity characteristic where you have someone who can remove all your obstacles. So that remover of obstacles only for that subset, now you can give it a name and form, and that is Ganesha or Ganapati, which you would have commonly heard. So you can now essentially take any combination of the divine characteristics, give it a name and form, and over the hundreds and thousands of years that's already been done in various following scriptures, it's been done. And there's a name and form given to many of those subset of characteristics and subset of those attributes. That's how all these different names and forms have emerged. Now, because you want to connect an anchor to these names and forms, even though it's all encompassing in that particular area. So if Ganesha, it is about obstacles. If it is Narayana, it's everything. But because you want to connect and you want to feel that there is somebody superior and more powerful who can handle things at a command, you essentially say, when you say Narayana, you would say, you know what, the one who is all powerful, who can address anything, which is true in many ways. When you look at Lakshmi, you would say the one who is compassionate, the giver of health, wealth, prosperity, which is true in many ways, in that sense of divinity, if you look at it. Through that is how you emerge with this definition of God. In many ways, it is the giver on demand. So you make a request and you expect the deity or the deva or the God to respond back to you.